Welcome to this video on Australia's Data Analytics Challenge. This video has arisen out of a passion between myself and a number of other people who are passionate to do something in Australia to improve the usage of analytics and data in business contexts. The initiators of this deck and the information that you're going to see today is myself, Dr. Evan Shelshire, the Head of Analytics at BRA, as well as Aldo Gutierrez, the Senior Manager of Analytics at McGrath-Nicol. And really, the way this came about was we both work to drive positive analytical outcomes in Australian businesses and even businesses around the world. We do a lot of work trying to turn data into insights and to actions to lead to benefits for organizations. However, everywhere we went, we kept seeing the same sets of challenges. And that led to us to realize we need to do something to help educate the wider community on what's going wrong and what can be done about this. So to begin with, I thought I'd start with a little story. And it's a story about a meeting that I had about a year and a half ago with one of Australia's largest health insurance companies. Now, this is always a nervous affair. When you're meeting a CEO of a company like this, who could end up potentially being a really big client, it's important to get it right. And I was there to convince them of the value of data analytics and AI, and that just made my job that much harder than some key core service which they understood and knew was valuable. So as the secretary invited me into the CEO's office, I was rehearsing AI's value proposition and preparing myself for a very difficult pitch. After I took a seat, the CEO walked in and got straight to business. She looked at me and sent me reeling when she said, "I need some AI." Suddenly, all my plans were out the window. I had a bigger problem on my hand than pitching AI. I recognized that ahead of me was a long educational piece to help her understand what AI is and what it could do and what it couldn't do. She'd clearly jumped on the AI bandwagon without knowing where it was going and saw artificial intelligence as the panacea to her stock price challenges. And you see, it's situations like these that analytics professionals face every day. And this is why we created this presentation and why this video is happening today. We have to demonstrate clearly the benefits of what can be achieved with analytics and data, but without the hype. And so I'm hoping for those of you who are hoping to understand what can be done with data analytics, and for those of you who use data analytics on a day-to-day basis, we can dig into some of the answers around why this is occurring and what we can do about it. So the challenge is well known. I think everyone understands this, but this is a quick summary around what's going on. The real power of data, as we all know, and we've heard all the catchphrases, has really not been completely understood and is genuinely waiting to be revealed. Data begets knowledge, and knowledge begets that power that data is about. It's about turning that knowledge into actions and good decisions. That's what it's at its core. And there are 4 parts at least that we can see to this, some of which I'm going to list here, and there are many more I'm sure you can come up with around how do we collect good data, how to use data effectively, how to use data to support better decisions. What does even good data look like in the first place for my business problems? And really, it's after helping organizations understand the holistic view of data that we can get onto the next steps of using data to solve business problems and simultaneously build data and analytics maturity to leverage AI, because this is going to be a key to getting there. But the problem is what are the roadblocks on that journey? And we've gone out and done a whole bunch of research around or with data analytics professionals across Australia to understand what are their pain points and why are they unable to leverage data and analytics within their organizations. See, in the end, this will increase the data and analytical capability of companies to better leverage data, and at the end of the day, do that thing that's most important for business, make better decisions. The reason why we need to solve this challenge is really, as I mentioned before, there's still a lack of understanding and clarity around what can be done with analytics and AI. There's often a mismatch between companies' expectations and what can be delivered by analytics and AI approaches and the timeframes required, as well as the explorative nature of data science projects. They're not just lay it out and do it. Often there are steps involved there and things that we don't know and are hidden from us before we begin that we only discover along the journey. We also need to solve it because a reliable approach to attack business problems is often lacking. Often there's a focus on technology for technology's sake, which leads to a mistrust in what's possible, especially when technology doesn't deliver on its hype. There's also a unique opportunity to build a unique ecosystem here in Australia. And in particular, the focus of our activities have been around Brisbane. And this can attract business to the state of Queensland and to other states around Australia by building up this reputation as an analytics excellence ecosystem. And data-driven decision-making leads to better business outcome, which is really what this is all about. So to understand what was driving the issues that we're seeing as consultants on a day-to-day basis, and to put a foundation and facts behind what we thought the reasons were, we went out and interviewed the top analytics managers across a number of large and medium-sized organizations within Brisbane and Australia. And these people worked at a variety of government, non-government, and private organizations. And our research revealed the main issues around unlocking data and analytics. And it really boils down to some core principles that everyone who's out there working in analytics keeps seeing again and again and again. And you'll see if you go through the bullet points down the slide, on the side, you can see it's all around educating and engaging the stakeholders within the business who are typically experts in their own field. And you can't expect them to be experts in data and analytics and AI, but they're experts in retail, they're experts in travel, they're experts in tourism, they're experts in food services. And what we need to be able to do is engage them and help them understand better and provide better expectations around what's possible. Because clearly, when we look at all the comments here, the disconnect between executive expectations, if CEOs had better expectations, the need for executive buy-in, senior management not having data literacy and trust, expectations are wrong, lack of understanding. Many executives don't even see it and haven't experienced it, and they don't know what to do with it. And this is the comments from senior data analytics managers, people who are like CIOs, CTOs, who are supposed to carry out large programs of data analytics work, expressing to us the challenges that they see. And these are pretty much the exact words of what was said with some slight cleaning up, but using their words. And we can see from all the different interviews that we did, they kept repeating themselves again and again with the same topic. So the summary that we can have and the conclusion that it leads to is that data and analytics initiatives live or die based on executive leadership. That's it. They will either succeed based on the way that executive leadership consider them and prioritize them, or they will die based on whether they just want to, I need some AI, or whether you truly want to use data and analytics to drive the growth of your business. We see there are a number of elements to a successful data-driven organization, and these are elements that we've distilled from a large number of global frameworks and tailored it to the Australian ecosystem based on what we're hearing and based on what we're seeing. And you can see there's a number of elements to this, from the leadership aspect, so the decision makers, the business owners, the executive team, and the culture that they create around understanding what's possible through data and understanding the value of data as well. We also need within a business clearly things like capabilities and tools. We need strategy and architecture, and we need governance and processes. But this video is squarely focused on the section in blue. Those parts in green are activities that businesses can carry out themselves, and they can leverage other organizations to assist them with capabilities and tools. They can buy them, they can get good strategies and architectures, they can implement good governance and processes, and all these things are written about and talked about. However, that leadership and culture part is often missing. So the initial focus of an organization wanting to drive data and analytics outcomes should be on inspiring leadership and culture via educating on the art of what's possible. We recognize that this is part of a bigger picture, and it's the first and the most important step on that journey, because if you don't have that leadership and culture buy, the rest of it just simply won't happen. There won't be that persistence and tenacity to go through the entire process that's required to achieve the value and exploit the value of data analytics, and the patience that's required, because if you don't have the backing of the executive suite, as we saw on this previous slide, and from the research we've done, you really won't have much success within your organization. So what's to be done then? If you're a leader within your organization and you want to understand what should I do next and where I'm at and how can I orient myself on where to go, a lot of useful tools are based around maturity scores. Now, some people do criticize maturity scores for not necessarily being clear in terms of where to go next, But in this case here, I'm going to give an example of an organization and its ranking on a maturity level and what type of benefits you can get out of carrying out data and analytics-based projects, because I want to help understand what type of impact this can have within an organization versus what's theoretically possible and what this can do to take you on that journey. Now, these slides here, if you'd like a copy of them so you can read through these items yourself, I'm more than happy to provide them afterwards. And you can see and read through each of the different elements, but there are really 4 elements that we think are most relevant for Australian organizations here. And they're the 4 down the left-hand side: strategy and architecture, culture and leadership, capability and tools, governance and processes. And we can rank them into 5 different levels here, from nascent to foundational to mature to advanced and up to visionary. And visionary really are the very, very few organizations. There are very few organizations that achieve a visionary level across each of the data maturity elements. And most of the organizations typically do sit within that nascent and foundational across a number of their categories, even if they do have strong strategy and architecture or good governance and processes. What you'll find is the culture and leadership may not value data or have low awareness of data and analytics or its value, so which leads to little or no executive support. So within this one here, you can have a look at where you rank on each of the different scales there, and you can go through it. You can pause the video and check it out and understand where you are in the journey. And then secondly, what you can do is you can look at what the next steps are on the journey for yourself. So for example, for each of the categories, what you want to do is you want to give yourself a corresponding score for that level. This will provide you with a score out of 20 for your usage of data as a strategic asset. What you then want to do is you then want to understand which areas you may be weak in based on the lower scores and improve them. Now, this may require engaging an external partner to be able to tackle that one aspect. And typically there is no one external organization that can do all 4 of these areas. Depending on which one it is, you'll want to choose an organization with that particular capability in that particular area. However, if you don't need an external partner, the pathway of improvement is simply to look at the next level and strive to build the capability as described in that entry. So for example, when hiring people with analytics capability of interest and relevance to your organization. So let's have a look at a quick example of a case study where we worked with an organization to improve their hospital theatre scheduling. So taking their data and applying analytics on top of it to improve the outcomes with scheduling people into theatre slots. Now, what I want to do in this example here is be really raw with it. I want to give you some of the raw lessons learned. I want to show you what's behind the hype of a lot of these case studies. And I want to really show you what can go wrong and what you need to do as an organization to be successful. As a consultant with years of consulting work and seeing many failures across the industry and other organizations that were unsuccessful with analytics outcomes, I have to admit that about 50% of the time, it is the actual client that leads to a disastrous outcome in spite of valiant efforts of many a consulting company. There are consulting companies that don't do a good job, but many do a good job. And in spite of that, they still fail because of prerequisites for success that were missing or some other important speed bumps that occurred along the way. So let's have a look at the background and challenge that was faced here. So this was a hospital within Australia facing a dire situation. The theatre scheduling team was facing growing waiting lists driven by manual processes, which took a team of up to 4 people to keep up with. Patients were sometimes missed and schedules were far from optimal. So for those scarce resources, the slots they have available to book people in and the surgeon they have available to carry out surgeries, these were not being utilized as best as they could. When we went in to solve the problem, we understood that there were some prerequisites for success. Basically, those prerequisites, first of all, were a willingness from the theatre booking team to want to improve their processes. In addition, we need an IT team which also wanted to see this problem solved. So we needed stakeholders from the relevant areas to be brought in and to know that they wanted a solution to this. The data didn't need to be of high quality, but the IT team still throughout the project needed to be there to resolve many issues. And those issues will always occur within almost all data sets. So you need to be prepared for that. So the need that they had was for an on-premise AI tool to better schedule patients across all their theatres they have available to them. Our solution approach used an AI-based theatre scheduling tool and was developed to optimally allocate patients based on their surgical priorities here using the Australian Surgical Priority System. Some of the really interesting things were the lessons that we learned and the results that we got out of this. And the results were clearly an increased number of elective surgeries that we're able to book in. The engine was able to show how it could do this. However, the lesson learned for us from that increased number of elective surgeries that were able to be booked in was the booking team's adoption was essential. And that meant that ease of use was key, and we had to do that so it matched existing processes. Some of the pitfalls and the gotchas throughout this process were data issues will continue to arise after deployment. So even going through user acceptance testing, and even after getting a tool that everyone said was great, months down the track, you're going to have new issues, and these issues will cause people to doubt the tool and require your effort to come back in. And one of the other big gotchas and the pitfalls that we had was while we're doing this, we kept telling ourselves we can do this better. So for example, surgical duration estimation, we knew analytically we could do this better. However, that was a mistake because the real path to success here would have been to leverage as much of the existing processes as possible. So use the existing estimations for surgery duration instead of trying to replace them with something better. So what happened for this organization was their data maturity increased. And this increase itself isn't the end goal, but it led not only to the benefits in understanding how surgical theatre slots could be booked better, but it led to an interest in understanding what other problems can we solve with analytics and do better, in particular at scale. When you're dealing with thousands of people in a health scenario, that's a scale that's worth investing data and analytics into. So before data maturity, before we came in would have been in a level 10. And this is an organization that was fairly mature along its journey. It had done a lot. Everything was not on paper and using paper and pencil. There was a lot of well-architected and well-designed IT systems sitting behind the scenes. And you can look at their strategy and architecture was mature, their culture and leadership was foundational, their capability and tools was foundational, and their governance and processes were mature. But what came out of it was actually very, very interesting. The two areas that obviously, or at least one of them obviously increased was that capability and tools. They went to the advanced level and that now they were using advanced optimization tools to schedule patients. However, a side effect of this was the improvement in the governance and processes. So they already had very mature and very good governance and processes to protect data. However, by engaging in this process, they reached the advanced level of creating an organization that has now gained higher trust in data and its usage throughout the project, creating further tools that would guarantee the correctness of the data and ensure it was fit for purpose. So this was actually a benefit beyond the simple data and analytics project that we had that had flow-on effects to other areas. And as the organization reaches this data maturity level, it now has stories to tell about this data maturity level that can get further buy-in for more analytics work and help convince other stakeholders within the analytics story that this is something of value. And so as you move up that higher maturity level, it means you can unlock more benefit and more value within the business than the lower levels. If you're at the lower levels, then you shouldn't be expecting to immediately be able to use advanced optimization. But if we're one of these lower levels, we know that we need to step up through the other levels to achieve that level of capability. And it's at that level of capability, let's say advanced or mature, that we start really reaping the value from our data. And certain activities and certain analytical approaches require an advanced level of maturity across multiple categories, or mature maturity across a number of categories as well, a number of capabilities. And so if you do want to leverage data analytics, you need to understand where you are on the journey and what the steps are and what the next level looks like, and take those steps to the next level, because it's as you reach those mature, advanced, and visionary levels that you're really able to leverage in data analytics to answer foundational questions about your business, and in particular, use data analytics to do the one thing it does best, and that's grow at scale. It's able to scale good decisions and make decisions better than would have been without the data and analytics. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for your attention during this video. And if you have any questions or comments, or would like a copy of this deck, or would simply like to reach out to talk about any of these topics, you've got my contact details there on the screen. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you for listening.